July 16, 1945. The desert of New Mexico was silent, the air crisp and motionless over the Jornada del Muerto. Dawn had not yet touched the horizon, and in the shadow of the Sandia and Manzano mountains, a small assembly of men waited, their faces pale in the chill of early morning. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, strangers united by secrecy and purpose, stood tensely beside equipment that represented the culmination of a project years in the making. They were about to witness the tangible manifestation of a scientific dream, a vision that could reshape the world forever. At precisely 5:30 a.m., the quiet fractured. A pillar of blinding light tore the sky apart, and a fireball expanded with a ferocity beyond comprehension. The desert shuddered. Sand melted into green glass, now known as Trinitite. Instruments twisted and fused, and the very air seemed to ripple under the force. The code name of this test was Trinity. For a fraction of a second, the line between creation and destruction dissolved. Shadows of men and instruments burned into the earth, eternal imprints of what had been unleashed. J. Robert Oppenheimer, the theoretical physicist and director of Los Alamos, lifted his goggles and whispered the words from the Bhagavad Gita, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." But to understand why these men stood in the desert that morning, one must trace back to the late 1930s, in the quiet laboratories of Europe, where curiosity intersected with the fear of global conflict. In 1938, German chemists Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann were conducting experiments with uranium. Their goal, ostensibly, was to better understand the atomic nucleus. Yet in the cold of a Berlin winter, an extraordinary discovery occurred. When bombarded with neutrons, uranium nuclei split into lighter elements, including barium. Energy was released in quantities orders of magnitude beyond any chemical reaction known. From exile in Sweden, Lisa Meitner and her nephew, Otto Frisch, analyzed these results and realized that nuclear fission had been achieved. They understood immediately that the atom itself could be broken, and in doing so, released a force that could reshape civilization. News of this discovery traveled fast through scientific networks, and by 1939, the possibility of a bomb powered by fission was no longer theoretical. Leo Szilard, a Hungarian physicist working in the United States, grasped the implications. If Nazi Germany were first to harness this energy, the consequences could be catastrophic. Szilard approached Albert Einstein, whose reputation carried immense weight, to co-sign a letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt warning that Germany might be developing extremely powerful bombs of a new type. The letter arrived at the White House on October 11, 1939. It was the spark that ignited what would become the Manhattan Project. Meanwhile, the scientists in Germany were far behind. Captured transcripts at Farm Hall later revealed that Hahn and his colleagues had no intention of producing a weapon, and in private, they expressed relief that Hitler's Germany had not built a bomb. Otto Hahn himself, in his 1944 Nobel lecture, would describe fission as momentous and indeed dangerous, confessing that he shuddered at the potential of a bomb being built and urging humanity to weigh deeply the responsibility of this power. By 1942, the United States fully mobilized for the atomic race. With war engulfing both Europe and the Pacific, the stakes were immense. General Leslie Groves, a man known for his pragmatism and unyielding resolve, was appointed to lead the Manhattan Project. Groves knew that success required not only manpower and material, but the leadership to unify brilliant, often temperamental minds under a single exacting goal. That man was J. Robert Oppenheimer, whose rare combination of theoretical mastery and administrative skill transformed Los Alamos into a laboratory of unparalleled innovation. Los Alamos, New Mexico, became a city of secrecy. Over 6,000 scientists and engineers lived and worked there, isolated from the outside world. Equations, reactor designs, and experiments dominated every waking moment. Around the country, facilities supported the central work. Oak Ridge, Tennessee enriched uranium through massive electromagnetic separation and gaseous diffusion. Hanford, Washington bred plutonium in newly constructed reactors. Each site was a node in an intricate network of precision and secrecy. Every shipment of material, every calculation, every shift of personnel carried the weight of global consequence. The design of the bombs themselves required ingenuity that pushed physics into practical engineering. Scientists had devised two types of weapons: a gun-type bomb using enriched uranium-235, later named Little Boy, and an implosion-type plutonium device called Fat Man. The implosion design, requiring symmetrical explosive lenses to compress the plutonium core uniformly, was unprecedented in scale and complexity. The plutonium core for Trinity was nicknamed the Gadget, a device whose preparation involved painstaking calculations by physicists like John von Neumann, Enrico Fermi, Hans Bethe, and Richard Feynman. Their work blurred the line between theory and application. The human element was always present. Scientists like Niels Bohr warned that the knowledge they were generating could not be contained, that the implications extended beyond national borders or military necessity. Leo Szilard, along with more than 70 colleagues, would later petition President Truman to delay the use of the bomb until Japan had a chance to surrender, aware of the human cost could be incomprehensible. Joseph Rotblat, the only Manhattan Project physicist to leave on moral grounds, foresaw the peril of releasing such destructive power into the world. These men confronted questions of ethics, responsibility, and the limits of science, questions that had no precedent. By mid-1945, Germany had surrendered. The European War had ended, but the Pacific theater continued. The Manhattan Project had reached a scale beyond comprehension. Over 130,000 people employed, billions of dollars spent, and a network of laboratories spanning the continent. The bombs were ready, but their efficacy remained untested. The Trinity test in New Mexico would provide that answer. On July 16, 1945, the desert became a cathedral of light. From bunkers miles away, military officers and scientists witnessed an event that defied comprehension. The implosion device detonated with a roughly 18.6 kilotons of TNT. The fireball expanded, scorching the desert and launching a mushroom cloud miles into the sky. Observers, caught between awe and terror, could hardly articulate the moment. Brigadier General Thomas Farrell described the explosion as unprecedented, magnificent, beautiful, stupendous, and terrifying, yet admitted words failed to capture its scale. Richard Feynman, youthful and irreverent, scribbled calculations as he stared at a scene no textbook had prepared him for. The Trinity test marked a watershed, the first demonstration that humans had unlocked a power that rivaled the forces of nature itself. Yet the exhalation was accompanied by moral clarity. Oppenheimer understood, as did his colleagues, that science had crossed a boundary it could not uncross. Knowledge had become tangible power, and power demanded responsibility. By late July 1945, after the success of the Trinity test, the atomic bombs had been carefully disassembled, packaged, and transported under strict military supervision. The U.S. Army now held in its possession two weapons unlike any in human history: the uranium-235 gun-type bomb, Little Boy, and the plutonium implosion device, Fat Man. Both represented years of labor, the culmination of a multinational effort to transform theoretical physics into instruments of unimaginable destructive power. Specialized transport units ensured every component, from the enriched uranium cores to the complex explosive lenses of the plutonium bomb, remained secure and intact as they were shipped toward the Pacific theater. The decision of what to do with these weapons now rested with the highest levels of political and military authority. Allied leaders, aware that Japan showed no inclination toward surrender, considered the consequences of a protracted invasion. Casualty estimates for a mainland assault ranged into the millions on both sides. Advisors briefed President Harry S. Truman on the power that had been harnessed, emphasizing that these were not conventional bombs. They could annihilate entire cities in seconds. The Potsdam Conference, held just days earlier on July 26, 1945, had delivered an ultimatum to Japan: unconditional surrender or face prompt and utter destruction. Japanese leaders ignored the declaration, leaving Truman and his advisors with an unprecedented moral and strategic decision. The weight of this responsibility fell directly on the president, who now had a weapon capable of ending the war instantly. Preparations for deployment proceeded with meticulous care. In the Hawaiian Islands and the Pacific, specially trained crews practiced handling the bombs, loading procedures, and flight operations. Colonel Paul W. Tibbets oversaw the readiness of the B-29 bomber Enola Gay, which would carry Little Boy to its target. Similarly, Major Charles Sweeney prepared Boxcar, the aircraft designated to deliver Fat Man. Flight crews conducted full-scale rehearsals, ensuring timing, navigation, and safety protocols were precise. Meanwhile, the bombs themselves remained under constant surveillance, with military and scientific personnel coordinating to guarantee functionality upon delivery. The combination of scientific precision and logistical planning was unmatched in scale and complexity. By August 6, 1945, the first operational bomb was ready. The city of Hiroshima, chosen for its strategic military and industrial significance, lay beneath a clear morning sky. At 8:15 a.m., Little Boy detonated approximately 1,900 feet above the city, unleashing a blast equivalent to 15 kilotons of TNT. The explosion instantly destroyed the central urban area. Buildings collapsed, steel frameworks bent, and the infrastructure of the city was obliterated. Tens of thousands of lives were extinguished in moments, and countless others would suffer from radiation sickness, injury, and long-term health effects in the ensuing weeks and months. Survivors, later known as hibakusha, bore witness to both the immediate devastation and the psychological trauma of witnessing the first use of an atomic weapon in human history. The military and political impact was immediate. Japanese leaders were confronted with a weapon whose destructive capacity exceeded any prior experience, and they faced the stark reality that continued resistance would lead to further annihilation. Strategic assessments of the atomic strikes emphasized the speed and totality of the city's destruction, reinforcing the U.S. decision to employ the bombs as a means of forcing surrender without launching a costly invasion of the Japanese mainland. 3 days later, on August 9, 1945, the plutonium implosion bomb Fat Man was dropped on Nagasaki. Nestled among hills, the city's topography magnified the destructive effect, concentrating the blast in certain areas. The explosion immediately leveled large portions of the urban center, claiming tens of thousands of lives. Damage to infrastructure and human survivability was extensive, with thousands more dying in the subsequent months from radiation exposure. The twin detonations demonstrated the operational reliability of both bomb designs and confirmed the terrifying potential of atomic energy as a tool of war. The cumulative effect of Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings, combined with the Soviet Union's entry into the war against Japan on August 8, 1945, accelerated the nation's decision to surrender. On August 15, 1945, Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's unconditional surrender, formally ending World War II. Cities lay in ruins, populations were decimated, and the psychological impact of nuclear warfare had introduced a new dimension to global conflict. The Manhattan Project, though conceived to counter Nazi Germany, had reshaped the Pacific theater and marked the dawn of the atomic age. In the aftermath, scientists, military personnel, and political leaders reflected on the unprecedented consequences of their actions. The Manhattan Project had demonstrated humanity's ability to manipulate fundamental forces of nature, but it also revealed the ethical and moral burdens of such power. For the scientists who had devoted years to the project, Oppenheimer, Fermi, Bethe, Szilard, and others, the success of the bombs was tempered by a profound awareness of the human cost. They recognized that knowledge, once converted into practical capability, could not be unlearned or contained. The legacy of the bombings extended far beyond immediate military victory. Nations around the world observed the demonstration of atomic power and quickly recognized its implications for international relations, deterrence, and the future conduct of war. Within the United States, policymakers began to consider the long-term management of nuclear technology, the ethics of its use, and the potential for future conflict under the shadow of weapons capable of unparalleled destruction. The decision to employ the bombs, while aimed at ending a global war, had inadvertently inaugurated a new era, one in which the potential for human self-destruction existed alongside scientific progress and national ambition. The operational deployment of Little Boy and Fat Man showcased the intersection of advanced science, industrial coordination, and military strategy. The Manhattan Project had achieved its immediate goal, delivering a decisive technological advantage. Yet it also forced humanity to confront the consequences of translating atomic theory into real-world application. Hiroshima and Nagasaki became symbols not only of wartime necessity, but also of the moral responsibilities imposed by knowledge capable of reshaping civilization. As the world emerged from the immediate shock of the bombings, questions persisted. How should nations regulate weapons of such scale? What responsibilities did scientists bear when their discoveries were converted into instruments of mass destruction? The Manhattan Project had resolved one urgent objective: ending a global war. But in doing so, it left humanity with enduring dilemmas about ethics, governance, and the use of power. The events of August 1945 thus represent both the apex of scientific achievement and a cautionary tale about the consequences of knowledge unbounded by moral or political foresight.